Hey, I'm Scott Morris, and that was a little etude. It was etude number 19 by Giuliani, the Opus 100. It's in my book, Classical Guitar Complete Volume 2, to demonstrate two things. Well, one, obviously, it's an excellent exercise for left-hand slurs, hammer-ons and pull-offs, and also for finding your way around the fretboard using different scale patterns. So what I want to do here is first just talk about how to get efficient, clean left-hand slurs, and then also just touch briefly a little bit on how to choose the fingerings for this particular piece. So the first thing I want to do is just discuss basic hammer-ons and pull-offs. And what I'm going to do is actually refer back to Volume 1 of Classical Guitar Complete in order to do that. So if you have a copy of that, it's on page 88. If not, I think you can probably follow it here. It's not too difficult. But I just want to show you a couple of simple little exercises and just talk about what you should be doing in order to play more efficient left-hand slurs. So the first thing here is the hammer-on. So just looking at exercise 8.20 in volume 1, it's on page 88. Just a real simple just simple little hammer-ons there, practicing all different finger combinations. So do 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 1, 3. And whichever one you have the most trouble with, for most people, it's probably 3, 4. Something about that fourth finger there, that pinky. It's a troublesome one. Those are the ones you should practice the most. The way you get better at playing guitar, and this is not something people really want to hear, is by working on the stuff you're really bad at and spending your time trying to improve those things rather than just doing the stuff you're really good at and feeling really good about yourself all the time. I spend my hours in the practice room just doing things that make me feel awful, and people wonder why musicians are such basket cases. So how do you do a good hammer-on, or classical guitarists like to say ascending slurs? One of the main things you want to do is make sure your hand is in proper position. A lot of people, they get out of position like this and they really aren't in the right spot to come down. So you need to get that nice balanced hand position. The best way to get that is if you do something like this. If you take your left arm, just sort of drop it and then bring it up, your fingers are all nicely curled there. Your thumb is positioned the back of the neck, usually around where the second finger is. If you take that away, kind of see where that is. So it's not coming up over the back. That's the main thing. That pulls your hand out of position as well. Makes it really tough. And now that your hand is in position, you just want to come down as hard and accurately as you can with whichever finger you're doing the hammer-on. Another little tip here is, play on your tips as much as you can. If you go flat, then obviously you're not going to have quite as clean a sound there. But one other thing to think about is if you play up closer to the fret wire, it's a lot easier than if you're playing in the middle or if you're playing at the back of the fret. You get a lot of buzzes and things like that. So stay on those tips and move right up to the edge there, and then just practice these different little exercises there, and again work on the ones that you're needing the most work on. Hammer-ons are more straightforward than pull-offs. Pull-offs, I think, are the ones that people kind of misunderstand more often than not. And I like to think about it like this. I don't think of it like a pull-off, because that just sort of sounds like you should just lift your finger up. Pull your finger off the string and you'll have a nice sound. It doesn't really work like that on an acoustic guitar, on a classical guitar. What you want to do is think about plucking the string with your left hand. So if I was going to do a pull-off, say from 4 to 3, so I'm actually plucking the string with my pinky. So if I pluck, I get that. If I lift, I get that. You can really hear the difference there. So you get that nice always try to make sure my pull off or my hammer on, the note that I'm slurring, is really as loud as the one that I'm plucking. One thing you can do to sort of consolidate this in your practice is you can practice these little triplet patterns. Things like or of course in pumping nylon, here's got the little triplets there, Scott Tennant's book. So whatever you can do to practice your slurs, you should definitely do it. But practice your slurs, isolate your slurs as a separate thing to practice. Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific here and talk about the first couple of measures of the little Giuliani etude. Well, the first thing is it's in G major, and the slurs, they're not mine. Giuliani actually put them in. When I take a piece like this for an article or for one of my books, I always make sure to go from as early a copy, a facsimile if possible, an urtext. Something where I'm not really editorializing and adding slurs, things like that. I want to know what Giuliani's slurs were for this, and so these are actually from him. So this is a slur exercise according to the composer here, and where he has the slurs can definitely give you a clue to where you need to play the notes. So this fits really nicely here into pattern 4, G major. So that's second position. So you get this. So that's your first measure there. And then it moves up. So these are jumping around a little bit more there. But let's just look at this first little ascending scale here. One of the things you want to do when you're playing a pattern like this, when you're playing a little slur pattern like this, is first make sure you don't rush your slurs. Too many guitar players, do something like that. You want them to be nice and steady, nice and rhythmically even. So I always practice with the metronome for things like that. But the other thing is a little bit more of a nuance kind of thing here. It's a little bit harder to do, but it's just as important to practice. And that's this. If you were plucking this, like, you would be accenting the downbeat. You've got straight 16th notes, well, except for the first 8th note here, but 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, with the accents being a little bit more on those downbeats on 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, one of the tricky things is when you're doing this ascending line, some of the notes, like for instance, that C right there, that's actually on a downbeat, which should be accented a little bit to clarify the rhythm, but you're slurring it. So what I do is, instead of just trying to play a clean slur, I play an even stronger slur there because I want to emphasize that downbeat, just like I would pluck it a little bit harder if I was plucking the note. So you still want to clarify, where those strong beats are, weak beats, so on and so forth. So kind of get the idea there. So again, practice with the metronome, and make sure you work that out. And it should be nice and even, not rushed. Like I said, too many people rush their slurs. Then you have to pull off this little shift here once you get to. That's pretty tricky. One of the things you can do to make your shifts, much easier is look for an open string opportunity to shift. This kind of stuff will save you. That open E right there. So I use that open E, rather than something like, and then trying to shift up like that. You don't want to do that. That won't go very well. So that's the idea there. The other thing is when you move to pull-offs, or you have to make sure that you keep those also rhythmically even. And that seems obvious, but technically it's tough because pull-offs feel different than hammer-ons. So one of the things I like to do, with students, I just did this for a student in a master class in Northern California just 2 days ago. I think he was playing a Giuliani, Villalobos Etude 2, I think is what it was, 3. And we just isolated, this one little scale here. This isn't from the Villalobos, but we just worked on this, and it seemed to fix a lot of issues. Just play an ascending and descending scale, just one position here, only plucking the first note on each string. And to do that in steady rhythmic time, it's really hard to do. Ascending is easier. But then when you have to descend, it's much, much trickier. So, practice your scales, ascending, descending. You can even, do like Segovia scales, things like that, with slurs. I like to take like 3-octave, scales. You can really get those burning there, if you're paying attention. It's not a cop-out. I think a lot of people think, want to pluck all of my scales because, that's more technically difficult to do or whatever it might be. But yes, you want to be able to play your scales, plucking each note, articulating each note. But that shouldn't be the only thing you do. You should also be able to slur for variety. So sometimes I pluck my scales, sometimes I slur my scales, whatever it might be, whichever serves the music the best. Sometimes I find slurring sounds more violin-like. And I kind of like that sound. So, when I'm playing Paganini or something like that, I like to slur more than I pluck because it sounds more violin-like. If you're playing a piece arranged from piano, keyboard, something like that, I might think differently because, it would sound more keyboard-like to articulate each note. So, I'm always thinking about these things, and I like to have lots of different options for that. Okay, well, again, I guess the point of this lecture here is, work on those slurs and, practice all sorts of varieties of slurs, hammer-ons, pull-offs. Make sure you understand how to do each one technically, and isolate them in your practice. Spend time on those to make them as clean as possible, as efficient as possible. And pieces like this and so many other pieces where you have slurs will be greatly improved for your effort. So hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next video.